Bare knuckle isn't just fighting, it's a violent celebration of what drew me to boxing and broader combat sports in the first place, because it's raw, it's real, and it's one of the purest forms of sanctioned fighting anywhere on the planet. And while some fights under Queensberry rules or even the unified rules of mixed martial arts can fall flat, bare knuckle rarely misses. Every exchange is danger and every punch is for survival. BKFC has become the fight game's scrappy outlaw because while it's rough around the edges, it's full of heart and it punches well above its weight. Right now, it's even closing the gap on the UFC faster than other MMA leagues, and on Saturday, atop BKFC 84, two men toe the line who embody that spirit more than anyone. Lorenzo Hunt, that's a former pound-for-pound #1 and one of the meanest guys in the modern era of BKFC. He comes back after a year-long layoff to try and reclaim his throne. To do that, he has to fight BKFC light heavyweight champion Josh Dyer. He looks like a Marine and he hits like a freight train. There is no chance this one is going the distance, none, because this is a firefight between two of the toughest men in BKFC fighting for legacy, violence, and a shot to headline Knucklemania 6 against possibly David Mundell or even Mike Perry. This is Combat X with Alan Dawson, and you can watch us on Swerve Combat. We're streaming now on the Roku channel, Fubo, Vizio, Sling, and Prime Video. And if you're watching us on YouTube, please like, throw us a subscribe, smash that button, because you can step in and check out the archive that made this sport bleed its way into history. This is Combat X with Lorenzo Hunt and Josh Dyer, and you won't want to miss what these two guys had to say. Lorenzo, it's great to speak to you for the first time. Well aware of your career and the stakes going into this, next fight for you. It's a rematch. You've got Josh Dyer again. You've already beaten him once, but he's the champion now. What improvements, if any, have you seen in Josh Dyer that make it a different fight than the first time you already fought him and beat him?
I haven't really been watching his fights. I applaud him on getting back up and not giving up after that beating that I put on him 3 years ago. I'm sure it had to be hard watching me go and become the double world champion with one of the best records in the bare knuckle fighting championship history, as well as becoming the #1 pound for pound fighter in the world. So if anything, I would say his tenacity and his ability to recover after taking a physical and psychological beating, I am impressed. However, this isn't the cartoons. This isn't, anime. This isn't the Road Runner where you can blow somebody up with an Acme missile and then they'll come and chase you down the next day. This is more like reality based, and the type of damage that I inflicted on Josh Dyer, if he's not careful, it will only get worse.
It kind of reminds me of there's two fighters over in the country where I'm from, in Britain, Chris Eubank Sr. and Chris Eubank Jr. And Chris Eubank Sr. always said he knew his son could fight growing up, but the thing he always wanted to see is whether he could take a beating. How big of a quality do you think that is in a fighter? You mentioned about the tenacity of Josh Dyer. How important can it be to take a beating, do you think?
It just depends on whether Chris Eubank meant metaphorically or actual physically. I don't think that our bodies and our brains are designed to take a beating. So the scars, the psychological and physical scars that we take, even though they may look to be healed, they actually never heal. Josh Dyer will always be injured from the injuries that he sustained when he fought me. Not just physically, but like I said, psychologically and perhaps even spiritually. When we get in the fight, I am going to touch those same scars. I'm going to punch him in those same spots, and I'm going to see if he is truly healed or not. That's very, very important. I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but I do know that as a kid growing up, if I hit my fingers with a hammer trying to put in a nail, the next time I try to hit that nail, my fingers won't let me. They won't let me do it. So I'm interested to see if his body will obey him. When I start punching him, will his mind and body tell him to fight or to flight or to freeze or to go down and stay down? I'm very interested to see what Josh Dyer brings to the table. I don't know what this broken version of Josh Dyer is. I only knew the him that thought he was invincible. But now that he knows he's not, I don't know what he's bringing. Like he might have a gun. I don't know. If he's smart, he might bring a gun.
Yeah, but it seems like from his part, there could be such a psychological barrier to overcome, considering the way the first fight played out. But when you look at your resume, you've made a career out of doing that. You've beaten BKFC champions, you've beaten MMA champions, and the recent inactivity from the injury loss a year and a half or 2 years ago has seen you come off the pound for pound rankings. You were number one in the entire business. Since then, David Mundell has risen to the top. What do you make of David Mundell and maybe the quality in the rankings since you last fought in bare knuckle fighting championship as a whole?
I have no problem with Dave Mundell holding down the fort as the pound for pound #1 fighter in the world. It was always a close race anyway, between me, him, Palomino, and probably Christine. The pound for pound thing, I never thought nothing of it until it just popped up one day, and Palomino was the pound for pound best in the world. And then I started comparing our stats, and I'm like, well, shit, I gotta be #2. And then when they started calling me #2, I didn't like being #2. So it's just another accolade, just something to throw out there when they do that amazing ring announcement and they say my name and they say everything that comes with it, all the work that I've put in. I'm happy with my ranking, not only in BKFC, but my ranking in life, my ranking as a husband, my ranking as a father. I put the same amount of passion in everything that I do. So, it's nothing. My hat's off to Dave Mundell. I've known that kid since 2013, 2012, and he was always kicking ass and doing his thing. He always had a little bit of a tough guy attitude, and we were punching the same punching bags and moving around the same cities and fighting for the same MMA promotions, and it was always awesome knowing Dave Mundell. So yeah, my hat's off. Hey, he's #1 pound for pound guy in the world, until I start throwing punches again. 1, 2 knockouts in a row, and then I'm #1 again. But I don't mind sharing that mantle with Dave Mundell.
I was about to say, let's say you get the W again against Josh Dyer, and then the pound for pound rankings are updated, and you're #2 to David Mundell. How would you feel in that scenario?
I'm okay with it at this point in my life. Like I said, I'm looking for a mean 10 fight streak of just pain and punishment all over the world. I want to be the best ever bare knuckle fighter in the world, not just in America. So I'm looking forward to going to Rome. I'm looking forward to going to Thailand. I'm looking forward to going to the Philippines. I'm looking forward to going to Africa. I'm looking forward to going wherever BKFC wants to go and prove my world dominance.
This is a question I did ask David when I spoke to him, because since what David Feldman has done brilliantly is obviously the sanctioning and having national acceptance of not just BKFC but the sport as a whole. There was a 100-year abyss where we couldn't really do this. So you have the new guys like you and David and Palomino who have reached #1 pound for pound and have made an impact in the sport. And to me, you guys are right there with the guys from 100 years ago. This old guard. There is a bare knuckle Hall of Fame. Have they ever reached out to you? Because I think they have reached out to David Mundell.
Yeah, I have the Police Gazette Diamond Belt. I am like I said, the first lineal cruiserweight champion since the 100-year flop. And I am the best in the world. I've defended it time and time again across weight classes. Like I said, I've never lost my cruiserweight or my light heavyweight title. So as far as the Hall of Fame goes, I'm that guy. Of course, there is some sanctioning issues and some this, that, and the other, and you know, promotional stuff. But that doesn't mean nothing to me. I'm a fighter, and I'll go wherever the fight takes me.
Just a couple more from me. There was news that I saw yesterday that Andrew Tate, he's big in like influence, you know, in the influencer realm. Influencer boxing is becoming bigger and bigger. He's going to be fighting for the Misfits heavyweight title in December. But it did get me thinking, because part of Andrew Tate's kind of shtick is that he's this macho guy. There's no more macho combat sport really than bare knuckle. How do you think someone like Andrew Tate would get on in BKFC?
Andrew Tate, as awesome as a guy that he is, has been out the game for quite some time, and I don't think you want to get your feet wet in bare knuckle. I'd gladly invite him to an event or to come and fight in bare knuckle so I could make light work of him. But right now, this is the gladiator. This is it right here. Misfits boxing is more a little bit. It's still a little fun. It's still a little, you know, you can do that and play tough. Bare knuckle is canceling out all of the notions that boxing is for tough guys and that MMA is where you go if you're a tough guy. No. If you're not doing bare knuckle, you're not doing nothing. Because I've sat next to the UFC champions, guys like John Jones, and they literally looked at me and said, "This is crazy. I could never do this. I could never do this." You know what I'm saying? So you don't have the bare knuckle guys sitting around saying, "Hey, I won't box." You don't have bare knuckle guys sitting around saying, "I won't do MMA." But you got those guys sitting around saying, "I won't do bare knuckle." So we already know what the top notch is. It's just take a little bit more time, and you'll see bare knuckle everywhere.
I would say I agree with those guys. I think the bare knuckle fighters are some, you know, there's fighters and then there's bare knuckle fighters. I think you guys are a different breed. It's awesome to see, you know, what you guys do. I think it's it is still the fastest rising sport. I love the concept and the sport. I do agree, though. I think you guys are something else, but that's what puts on the show.
Yes, sir. And like I said, you know, bare knuckle is bare knuckle.
With you know, we talked about Andrew Tate coming back there, well, not coming back to bare knuckle, but there's this thing. Conor McGregor keeps saying he's a player manager, but you could. It seems like, you know, with the weight classes in bare knuckle, you could throw a dart and he could compete in a few of those. He's competed, you know, I don't think he could get down to 145 anymore. He could still probably do 155, but he's talked about even doing, 185 and even higher. Amongst the roster, is there, you know, kind of discussion about where Conor McGregor might come back to if he was going to fight? And do you think he could fight in your division?
I wouldn't fight Conor McGregor, just out of respect for the promotion and for respect for his contribution to MMA as a whole and to bare knuckle as well. I wouldn't want to see how that played out. I don't think I can make myself be nice while I'm fighting. With that respect, I think that him and Elvin Brito would be an amazing matchup. Him and Mike Perry would be an amazing matchup. Him and Palomino would be a crazy matchup. Even him and Austin Trout. But him versus me, don't play. Like I don't play. I am the guy that was here. I came through the tryouts and I was stoked when bare knuckle got legalized. But if I keep fighting the way I am, I'll probably be the reason bare knuckle gets illegalized. So some dudes they'll be very smart to avoid me.
That might be the most cold-blooded line I think I've ever heard from a bare knuckle fighter. It becoming about the way you fight, it becoming illegal again.
Yeah. I'm not. This is not a sport for me. This is life or death.
That's a chilling way to end it, but I think that's a great way to end it. Lorenzo, I really appreciate your time. I'm really looking forward to seeing you back to toe the line. This is where you belong, and it's where you've had, a huge impact. So I'm looking forward to seeing you, toe the line once again. Thanks so much for your time, champ. Hey Josh, it's great to connect with you. This is the first time you and I have spoken, but BKFC light heavyweight champion, does it still feel as good hearing that now as the first time you heard it in May?
Sure, not as cool as having that awesome accent you got rocking there, brother. I would love to be able to have that. But yeah, it feels all right. To me, it never really changed anything. I won the belt, and if anything, it gave me a little credibility, but I just felt in my heart that I was the champion I had been. So I just, yeah, it's pretty much all the same for me.
Do you know what? We could do a trade, but I don't know if you would do this trade. I'd have your body and muscles, and you can have my accent. Does that?
I'll take that trade. I'll take it, bro.
You're returning to toe the line on November 15th. You're going to one of my favorite places in the world. I'm in Nevada, but you're going to the Coachella Valley. Awesome spot. You're fighting Lorenzo Hunt. One of the baddest dudes in BK, really. What were the discussions like? With David Feldman, BKFC matchmakers, because, this matchup is a tough first defense for you. Did you want revenge? Because I know you fought him before, or, you could have had an easier title defense, I think, for your first one. What were the conversations like, knowing that you're going in against someone like Lorenzo?
I called Lorenzo the day after I beat Richmond.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I called him up and I was like, hey, man, I'm not really sure what you're trying to do right now, but just letting you know, I'm like, you can come and get this any day you want it. So I was like, I don't know if you're stuck at 205 or if you're gonna be at heavyweight, but I'm like, this 85 belt, it's always open to you. So if you ever feel like you want to come down and test yourself, I want the baddest dude in the world to have this. So I'm like, and at the time he was like, yeah, I'm not really feeling well 6 months ago. And now he shot, as soon as he showed interest, I reached out and I was like, bro, it's yours. I'll call and make it happen. And here we are.
My God, that's amazing to know. You were pushing for the fight, literally running towards the fire, because, when I look at your resume in BK, I know you've had other fights in other disciplines, but, you fought, Jared Warren, Mike Richmond, Lorenzo Hunt. These are some of the baddest motherfuckers in BKFC, and they're all on your resume.
Yeah, we like to not take any shortcuts. I showed up at bare knuckle and I was like, I'm never going to say no. And I'm going to deliver highlight reel knockouts the whole way through. So just give me the shot, and they threw Lorenzo at me my second fight. And I thought I had him, before I showed up. And I learned quickly that he's a tougher dude than I thought. And had to make some changes, and it was all for the better. Now I developed a style that I believe can destroy him. So now I'm excited to test it out.
I did want to touch on that with you, because we've spoken to Lorenzo already on the show. And, we talked about the first fight, and he said, I can't remember what his exact words were, but it was basically along the lines of, like, once he's broken someone, he doesn't think if they fought again that the fight would ever be any different. But, considering what you've gone on to achieve since that first fight with him, what gives you the confidence to think it's going to be revenge this time on November 15th rather than a repeat for Lorenzo?
Well, the thing that gives me the most confidence is that I spent a year in my basement just writing down, everything that needed to happen in order to be able to beat someone of Lorenzo's caliber. I basically blended 3 of the best styles in the world: Dominic Cruz, Mike Tyson, and Muhammad Ali. And I blended the best things that they had to offer. And I created my own new style out of that with no coach, no help, no nothing. I just sat in my basement, watched videos, practiced the footwork patterns, and tested it on Dakota Cochran, and it worked great. And then tested it on Wild Bill, worked great. It worked on Mike Richmond. It worked on, everyone that I fought, even Diesel Riggs, like everybody that I use it against, it works on. But it was never designed for them. It was designed for Lorenzo. I built this for him. So the ultimate test, I created this. So, I want to test it on the man that I made it for. So that brings me pride. The belt's cool and all, but I don't want to be like these other guys that are running and hiding. Like they get the belt and they're so excited to keep it. It's the biggest joy they've ever had in their life. I just want to be the baddest dude on the planet, you know, and in my weight division, you know, Lorenzo is a strong candidate. So I want to go out there and prove to everyone that not only do I have the belt, but I truly earned it.
Yeah, I mean, you've earned it already, but this, you know, running straight to Lorenzo for a first title defense, hearing that story as well, it's just awesome to hear, you know, as a reporter, but as a fan of combat sports as well, because it just seems like this is a different Josh Dyer mentally, strategically, physically, tactically as well. And, you know, it should be a completely different fight from the sounds of it.
Yeah, it should be. I mean, I'm a completely different person in all those areas that you just mentioned, which, I mean, in every one of those areas makes me more competitive, but altogether, it makes me a really hard person to beat. So I think this is going to be an interesting fight. You know, like everything that makes Lorenzo great, my style is designed to break. You know, like all of his forward momentum, it's designed for him to miss. You know, like, you know, I haven't been touched since I fought Lorenzo. You look at every fight I've had, and I mean, have you seen a scratch on my face in the last 5 years? You know, like when I fought Mike Richmond, I didn't have a mark on my face, you know, and we saw what he did to Lorenzo, but obviously that doesn't mean that I'm guaranteed to win. But it should let you know that my style is designed to avoid damage while at the same time pumping out massive damage. So I'm excited to test on the dude that inflicts massive damage.
I just want to touch on a few things, like, you know, obviously, you know your work, know your resume, being on your Instagram. There was one photograph you posted recently, and it was of that first fight with Lorenzo, but the caption, I'm going to read it. The caption said, "People love a good comeback story. Some weak kid gets beat up and trains until he's invincible. That's classic 80s television programming. That's not real life, and this ain't a fucking movie." When people see the Josh Dyer of today, you're a guy who's built like a freaking Marine, like a movie star. I don't think anybody would be able to visualize a weak kid Josh Dyer. When were you a weak kid, or what made you feel weak, or what, you know, what's your journey been to get to this point now where, you know, you look like you do, a guy capable of, like, you know, just a wrecking machine?
You know, the last time I remember ever being weak was just being a military kid. You know, when I was 5 years old, I moved to Alaska, and, you know, from Georgia, which, I mean, it's all the way across the United States, man. Like, it's a completely different world. I was in South Hillbilly, Georgia, and then we moved to Anchorage, Alaska, where now you're in civilization, and now we got, you know, rules we got to follow. You know, we had 200 acres of country land, and all of our family lived out on our land, and, you know, we had no rules. My grandpa was the mayor, my uncles were the sheriffs of the town. Like, we were like the Dukes of Hazzard out there. Like, we just did whatever. And you know, I learned that moving, you know, when you have like a really southern accent to somewhere like Alaska where there is no southern accents around, you get bullied a little bit. And so I got bullied a lot, you know, moving around from Alaska, then to New Mexico, then to South Dakota. And every time, like, I move somewhere, it's a different accent, a different like culture. You know, they've all got their own friends they've been going to school with since they were kids. And so I'm always the new kid. And so then I always had to, like, I felt like I had to be nicer to everybody to try to get friends, which appears as a weakness. So then you get everybody that wants to bully you starts showing up, and eventually I just got sick of that shit. And I was like, all right, listen, I'm done being the nice guy. Like, all right, if you're gonna be a dickhead, like, I'm just gonna whoop your ass. And then things change. You know, now you gain respect. Now people want to hang out with you, and they don't want to, you know, mess with you and stuff. But the narrative that he's talking about doesn't really apply. You know, like, I've been fighting since I was 18. You know, I fought in the underground for almost 20 fights before I ever went pro. You know, I mean, I was fighting guys like Devin Clark, who was top 10 in the world in the UFC. I was fighting Miles Marshall, #1 ranked, you know, amateurs in the United States of America at the time. I was 17-0. I've been clawing around in the regional ranks and, like, the undergrounds for a while, and I built toughness there. You know, when I fought Lorenzo, I mean, I was the first guy that ever made it 5 rounds with him, and who saw that coming? You know?
Yeah.
And one fight before that, I showed up with board shorts with pockets hanging out, no banner, no coach, no freaking trainer. I didn't even know my corners didn't have plane tickets waiting for them. We had like the sponsorships weren't there. I was lied to about the money. I was told Jared Warren was a nobody. I was set up, you know, by my manager. And, you know, I showed up, beat the daylights out of him with just pure heart, jumped in the ring with Lorenzo, had a ton of things go wrong that night, and still made it further than anybody had ever made it with him. And still, I'm not sure how many guys, the 85, have made it 5 rounds with Lorenzo, but I was the guy. You know, I've got the heart for it. I just didn't have the skills yet. You know, so then I spent the next 4 years building the skills, and now I'm here.
That really speaks to me because obviously, you know, having an English accent, we moved in 2021, left London, came to Nevada, and I had, you know, I've got a wife, two young boys, and yeah, like they've still got their accents. And my well, he's 9 years old now, Hunter, but when he was 5, when we did the move, I feel like he kind of came inside of himself a little bit since the move, and I think it's all because of how different he sounds, you know, out in the southwest of America compared to how, you know, normal he sounded, you know, to everyone else back in London. So I'm gonna, you know, play him what you just said about how, you know, you overcome that and you turn into a champion like you've done.
Yeah, that's the best thing you can do, you know. And I'll say that if you want to be a champion of anything someday, you got to go through the hardships to do it. So just like you guys moving over here, you set yourself up for an epic transformational story. You know, like everybody else, I mean, they got an easy life, so they stay comfortable and they don't do anything with it. You know, yeah. when you have to overcome all this adversity, you forge an unbreakable spirit, you know, that's just so much more resilient than everybody else's. So you next thing you know, you're like, oh shit, like everybody that like used to like think they're better than me, they're 300 pounds sitting at home broke as hell, you know, watching you on TV and telling all their buddies how they used to know that guy. That the highlight of their life now is to be able to say, I used to know that guy. You know, I'm just like, it's crazy, you know. And but it's great, you know. Batman would have never became Batman if his parents hadn't been killed in front of him. You know, it's just you got to overcome these things, and so it's the perfect opportunity. You know, when you look at the journey that you guys have been given, it's the opportunity to make something amazing, and that's a blessing.
I want to take you back to the Mike Richman fight because, you know, you said you didn't have a scratch on you. We've had Mike on the show before. He's, you know, a serious dude in BK. You know, going into it, did you think it would be a tough fight? You know, were you surprised at how easily you would be able to manhandle him? You know, what were the feelings like celebrating that success, lifting the belt as, you know, a light heavyweight champion?
Well, yeah, because after watching what he did to Lorenzo Hunt, I was like, holy shit. I'm like, okay, well, he's always got that in his back pocket, I guess. So, and then I saw what he did to Jared Warren. You know, I mean, I fought Jared twice, and I would say I beat him easily twice. You know, out of 5 rounds of total combat across 2 fights, it took 3 rounds the first time and 2 the second time. I've dropped him every single round. You know, that's a 100% knockdown ratio per round in 2 fights. And I didn't make it look as easy as Richman did, though. I mean, Richman hit him 2 times and it was over. And so I was like, fuck. I was like, how hard does this Marine hit if he can drop? I mean, like, I hit hard as hell, but I still had to hit Jared like 1,000 times to make him finally go down. You know, like I had to bust that dude up. And Richman's over here just like, pink. Not even his power hand. And I'm just like, okay, so I'm gonna have to handle this guy perfectly, because if he could sleep these guys, I'm like, he could probably get me too. So I just developed a really strong game plan against him, and we executed it perfectly. And I found out a lot about myself that night. Like, I am faster than I thought. I'm a better sniper. You know, like everybody looked at Mike like he was the best sniper in the world. And I looked at him like that. My own team afterwards was like, dude, if you would have told us that you were going to try to out-snipe Mike tonight, we would have all told you were going to lose. Like, all of us. They're like, we didn't know you could do that. I'm like, I didn't even know I could do that. But yeah, I was shocked. You know, like when I looked in the mirror when I was done, I was like, I don't have a mark on my face. I was like, holy shit. I was like, Lorenzo's eyeballs like hanging out of his head, freaking all busted up, slices across his face, you know. I was like, damn, puking blood, couldn't even hardly like move, he's all hurt. I was like, all right, well, obviously like what I'm doing is working, and I'm impressed. Like I every once in a while I just gotta step back and go, damn, Josh, you did all right. You did good, brother.
Oh yeah, you did fantastic. But I mean, you didn't have a mark on your face, but did you see the photos Richman posted a few days after? It looked like he'd not been in a fight with you. It looked like he'd been in a fight with a hedge trimmer or a chainsaw or something. His face looked, you know, disgusting. In the moment, the win is pure adrenaline, I think, you know, but when the dust settles and you see the damage, you know, you've caused another person, you know, there's bare knuckle highs and then there's lows. Was it a reality check, or, you know, how do you, how do you kind of go through that journey of like, in the moment, you know, scoring that win, the training camp comes to an end, the win is yours, you know, you've lifted a belt, it's like a life's work. But then a few days later, the dust settles, you know, and you see, you know, another person who's like had the complete opposite experience of you in that fight. You know, are these just the highs and lows of a fighter, not just in bare knuckle, but any combat sport, you know? But can you kind of see what I'm kind of asking? You know, how did it feel seeing that on
Oh, it felt terrible. I went and I watched him get stitched up in the back, and I didn't know he looked like that. You know, like I didn't know, you know, like I knew he had a cut, but I didn't realize that there was that much damage. And so when I walked back and looked at him, and like I seen him, like his eyes, like he had to keep his face kind of like straight because they were sewing, but his eyes looked at me, you know, and he like put up his hand to like give me knuckles, and like you could tell that he was still proud, you know, like he didn't quit. You know, the doctors made him stop, and you could tell, like, even though he was dealing with this, he was like still proud. And it broke me because I was like, damn, like that guy has an unbreakable spirit. You know, like he really does, because he was having a really shit night and he never once quit. And I remember a week later, I went and I visited him in Minneapolis. I took my kids up to the Mall of America, and I invited him out. And I wasn't sure if it was like polite or not polite to invite him out, because like I wasn't trying to like show my family like what he looked like. You know, I was just trying to hang out with the guy a little bit. And so I threw the option out there, and I was like, hey man, I just want to make sure you're cool. And he came out, you know, he had the sunglasses on, but looked pretty good. Couldn't really see anything. And then he pulled the sunglasses off, and it looked like he had barely been scratched. You know, I was like, what the fuck? And he was like, yeah, he's like, I got all my stitches are out already. It was only a week later. And I was like, it literally looks like a little pink scratch. I was like, how the hell did you do that? And he was just like, well, my wife, you know, she's staying on me to keep it moisturized. And, you know, like we had a really good surgery. And I was just like, holy shit, man. I was like, good job. Like, are you Wolverine? Like, that would have been incredible. But I felt better seeing that he was better and he is happy. And we talked about the fight and, you know, like what went right for us and wrong for us. It's kind of bullshit. Bought him a beer. You know, we ate at the Rainforest Cafe and had a great night. And, you know, like I'll always hold Mike Richman as a friend. In my heart, I wish he would have gone down sooner. But at the same time, like it's the fact that he didn't is what makes Mike who he is. And you got to look at that and just be grateful, you know, like, hey, thank you for that experience. And, you know, thank you for making this something I had to earn. And thank you for beating the shit out of Lorenzo first, you know, thanks for giving me the blueprint. So I'm, yeah, the highs and the lows. Oh, this is our new cat. We just got him yesterday.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, he hasn't learned the difference between like being on the table and not yet. So we're gonna have to go and get on. There you go.
But when you talk about the resilience and like the never give up and just that pride from Richman, I've said this to like pretty much every bare knuckle guest I think we've had on the show, that I cover boxing, cover MMA, cover bare knuckle. I just think you guys are a different breed, even compared to other fighters, with, you know, what it looks like on screen to someone who doesn't do it like me, and you come out the other side, you know, a week later that, you know, he's recovered and you guys are having a beer. But the other thing that stands out, that Conor McGregor at one of the recent events really, you know, made it clear that it's a family organization. You know, you go through your Instagrams, your kids are very much present, you know, on your social media, you know, other kids as well. You know, it seems like you're very much in the community. You know, you're inviting, you know, David Mundell into your personal life. I think it really humanizes the fact that you're not just these savages that people might think. You know, you're also quite like sweethearts outside the ring, but when you toe the line, you know, just something switches, and you know, that's what makes the sport and the organization, I think, one of one.
Well, yeah, definitely. I don't see it in all the fighters, but you know, I've always just been a real person. You know, like I want to get up there and do my thing. I'm good at a couple things in this world. One is fighting, one's painting houses, one's hanging out with my kids, you know. So I try to, you know, incorporate those together as much as I can. And, you know, ultimately I mostly just want to be around the family. You know, I want to have security, have a nice little house outside of town, and, you know, get some goats and chickens, and, you know, just be healthy, say screw the government and do our own thing. And fighting is the quickest way there for me, because I'm freaking good at it. You know, if I didn't have to do it, I probably wouldn't be doing it, but I'm just trying to fast track everything. So I'm like, hey, if I could do this in a couple years and then retire with a happy family, I'm like, that'll work for me.
I know, like, Lorenzo is the you know, the focus, but you know, can't help but see there's so many, you know, moving parts in and around your weight division. Your name is mentioned alongside David Mundell, another guy we've had on the show. You know, is that I mean, if that fight happened, that would be a fight for the pound for pound #1, you know, status. Is that something you think we could build towards it in 2026, you and Mundell?
Yeah, absolutely. For me, I was really only considering Mundell just because I did want that pound for pound status, and I thought that by beating Mundell, it would guarantee me the opportunity to get Perry.
Yeah.
So I was like, then I can go and pick up the, you know, the King of Violence belt. And I was like, yo, to be a double champ, pound for pound, King of Violence, all that. I'm like, it maybe screams more money, you know? And then I'm like, all right, Jake Paul, where you at, buddy? Like,
Oh, yes.
I'll zip over there. I'll handle that dude, come back. I'll beat him, which will probably go against the contract he writes up. So now I'll probably have the feds trying to kill me. So yeah, now I'm just trying to fast track it all, man. I'm like, I want to go out on my shield. But in the meantime, might as well make some money in the process.
That would be a hell of a run. I mean, it's a hell of a run already, but when, you know, you think, like, you know, if you get this revenge win over Lorenzo Hunt, you know, Mundell and Perry, I think they should have that fight at the next Knuckle Mania. You know, if they did fight each other before one or both of them fought you, who do you think would win between Mundell and Perry?
Oh, Mundell would definitely win. Yeah, he would definitely win, which sucks because I wanted to dethrone Perry first. You know, but that's all right. You know, like, Mundell earned it, and I'm not going to take that away from him. I was just trying to, like, sneak my way in. You know, I was just like, all right, guys, let me just go beat Mundell quick, and then I'll take the Perry spot, and then I'll go get Jake Paul, and then, you know, I'll beat Lorenzo. Like, I kind of just wanted to be the guy that did it all first, you know, which makes it way cooler. It's not cool to beat Lorenzo second. It's not cool to beat Perry second. These guys are the ones that are basically undefeated. And you're just like, hey, I want to be the one that does it. So then you get all the recognition. And so I'm like, it all translates to views and pay-per-views and freaking money. So I'm trying to get some.
I hope you get it. The last thing I wanted to touch on is that, you know, I've been covering BKFC since I think the third event. You know, I think it's such a spectacle and it keeps on growing. But at the time a few years ago, it really did seem like it was I still think it is the #1 organization outside the UFC. But in the last few years, we've seen a few other organizations come up, BYB, you know, Dirty Boxing. You know, how do you think BKFC can continue to stand alone in its space? Or, you know, do you think anyone in the organization is looking over its shoulder at, like, Dirty Boxing or BYB? You know, can any of those rival promotions, do you think, challenge BKFC as the #1 promotion outside the UFC?
I'm not going to put it past them. I think they've got a little bit of a ways to go. I'm not really 100% sure what it is that makes BKFC so special, but I mean, it seems like we pack the crowds. You know, it seems like our visuals are a little better. We've got great announcers. We got everything's cool. We got the smoke, the flames, we got the freaking, you know, the cool walkouts. There's a lot of really cool things about the sport that make it stand out when compared to the other bare knuckles. And then the style itself, I think, separates it from UFC. So I think they're going to be good. You know, like I will try to look at BYB and you know BKB, and they just look like a local promoter threw something together in a school. You know, and it's like, oh, we're gonna do this in the school cafeteria or the school gymnasium, and you know, we're gonna have. And you look out in the crowd, and it looks like there's maybe 300 people there total. You know, it just doesn't look like bare knuckle fighting championships. So I think we're good for now, but I mean, obviously investors could change things around, but I don't know. I think we're doing it, man. Like, we got really good advertising. There's a pretty good app now. It went through its troubles, but we got a good app now. And I mean, it's got the aesthetics, you know, it looks really good.
Yeah. And I mean, you look really good as well. And I'm really looking forward to this fight with Lorenzo Hunt. It's like such a, you know, statement fight for November across all of combat sports, not just bare knuckle. Have you got any final words for the fight fans out there? You know, not just maybe on this fight, but any other plans? You know, the floor is yours, Josh.
Yeah, you know, I promised my fight fans, you know, when I first got into bare knuckle, I told everyone, you know, I will never go to decision. You know, I'm going to be a brawler. I'm going to smash. I'm going to bash. I'm either going to get finished or I'm going to finish everyone. This is an entertainment industry. You know, I showed up as a nobody, a small town South Dakota kid with nothing, man. And I told everyone, I'm like, the only chance I have is I have to not only win, but I have to win in the most entertaining fashion possible. I have to make it so fun to watch me that I turn myself into a star. And that's what I've done. I've kept that promise. I've taken every opportunity to do that. I put myself into some risky situations to entertain the crowd. You know, I'm not chasing easy fights. I'm calling out the biggest, the baddest. I'm delivering. I'm securing the victories. I'm doing every single thing that I say I'm going to do. I'm keeping my word. And it's over years, people start to believe. You know, everybody doubts for a while, but after 5 years, people look back and they're like, dude, Josh has done every single thing he said he was gonna fucking do. Like, every fucking thing he says, he does it. Like, is this dude a prophet? Like, can he tell the future? Like, pretty soon it just gets fun to watch me. They're like, oh shit, no, we're gonna watch Josh. He said he was gonna, you know, do a backflip and, you know, Superman punch this guy out of the ring. You know, I mean, it'd be the first time he lied. So let's put it on just in case. You know, we don't want to miss it. So I'm like, I do these things so that people can have fun, you know, so that when they tell their friends, hey, come over to my house tonight, I'm gonna put on bare knuckle, and they're like, oh, what's bare knuckle? Don't worry, just get here. I'm gonna make sure it's good. And then they show up and their first fight is watching Josh Dyer fight somebody. And then they're like, whoa. And now their friends think they're cool for introducing them to bare knuckle versus, you know, whenever the dude invites their buddies over and Mallow's fighting, you know, and they're like, oh shit, he got some peacock headed dude running around that quits and crying in the middle of the ring. Like, oh, like, what the fuck is this? Is this like second grade, like getting bullied on the school ground, crying to the teacher? Like, you know, I try to set it up to where I can not only make myself look good, I want to make the sport look good, and I want to make my fans look good. Like, I want every person that was a fan of mine first to look cool to all their friends and be like, damn, dude, thanks for introducing us to this guy. Like, yeah, you definitely have good taste in fighters. I'm like, yeah, you do. Thanks for believing in me. Thanks for buying the pay-per-view, and thanks for having a host party.
That's a perfect way to end it. Josh, thank you so much for the time. Wish you the best of luck. And Lorenzo, you know, really looking forward to a great fight on November the 15th in the Coachella Valley. That was Combat X Josh Dyer.